Good morning. Thank you all for being here. Thanks especially to the Decorative Arts Trust and the Jen Rett Foundation, the Winter Show, and Park Avenue Armory for hosting us. I am here representing the Jen Rett Foundation as a 2025 member of the Thompson Collection Fellows cohort, and want to set expectations just a little bit because we've had three really incredible talks so far about dissertation research and exhibition research. And I'm going to be talking to you today about a new project that I've been working on for about 3 months. So there's a lot that I don't know yet, but I'm very excited to talk with you about today. So the object that I'm going to focus on this morning is a small, rather unassuming at first glance, watercolor painting of the interior of a home in St. Croix in the Danish West Indies. This watercolor hangs in Mr. Jen Rett's bedroom at Edgewater, for those of you who have been there, and it's hung beneath another watercolor depicting St. Croix, this one, the one on the top, which is a landscape of Christiansted Harbor. Mr. Jen Rett purchased these two watercolors from Donald Held Rare Books in 2005. And these two pieces together are really fascinating to me amidst the larger collection of American neoclassical furniture and decorative arts that Mr. Jen Rett collected over his lifetime. And that's because while they live at Edgewater, they really call back to Mr. Jen Rett's house on the island of St. Croix, Cane Garden, which is pictured here. No longer part of the Jen Rett Foundation's portfolio of properties, but I think very kind of relevant to why these two pieces exist at Edgewater today. And just to orient us a little bit, just a map of St. Croix and Christiansted on the north of the island there. So the catalog record for this image was pretty sparse. No name of an artist, no date outside of the rather large range of 1840 to 1880. No provenance, really. So I kind of started this armed with very little information about this piece. And I didn't really expect to find out much more, honestly, in the time that I had. The project that I envisioned for myself here was one much more focused on using this piece to tell some kind of generic story about what an upper class home on the island might look like in the mid-19th century. And thinking, of course, about this fascinating portrait, I'm gonna zoom in on it in a minute, portrait of a possibly, presumably enslaved woman sitting at the house's front door. But looking closely at this object actually moved things into a totally different and very exciting direction, which is what I'm gonna talk to you about today. So an initial quick kind of visual analysis of what we're looking at here didn't really reveal any immediately identifiable features like the signature of an artist, which I would have loved to find and did not. The room depicted here is likely a main hall or a reception room. At the center of the image, we see a doorway opening to a porch with kind of the porch open to this green mountainous landscape. And we see this likely enslaved woman sitting on the porch in the doorway. She's wearing a blue gown, a red and white head wrap. She's wearing an apron and seems to be sewing or mending a textile. Rather than the polished mahogany floors described and depicted in many other 18th and 19th century Caribbean interiors, the floor in this room appears to be covered with a canvas floor cloth. The walls are covered with blue and gold wallpaper, and wall hangings include 5 paintings or drawings, 2 of which are definitely landscapes, 2 definitely portraits. 1 is very small, and I don't know what it is, maybe a still life. These are very hard to see. And 2 large mirrors next to 2 closed jalousie windows. The house appears to have a mansard roof with at least 3 rooms, the main room, of course, that you're seeing here, and then 1 room on either side. We can see 2 closed doors. For a sense of what this house may have looked like on the outside, I just want to share this sketch by Henry Morton, who is a Philadelphian who actually traveled through the West Indies in 1834 and 35. And I'm really looking at this house kind of more in the background up on the hill. And we're going to come back to this image in a minute. It's important, so keep it in the back of your mind. To go back inside for a minute, the room is heavily furnished and decorated. We see in the foreground this large circular wooden table with turned legs that appear to be on casters. And I'm like I love this. I think the table is very interesting. It takes up so much of the composition in a very interesting way to me. I don't know. The table is flanked by an upholstered couch and what appears to be a desk or work table on the left, a sideboard on the right. In the middle ground, we see various furnishings, including a dresser, 2 small wooden tables, 2 wooden chairs with seat rails exposed, or cane seats exposed. They clearly don't have upholstered seats or cushions on them at the moment. 2 pier tables, a kettle with a stand, a large rectangular wooden table with a green textile draped over it, and some smaller objects, some recognizable, some not, sit atop tables and other furniture. It's kind of hard to see, but there are a number of glasses sitting on the sideboard, for example. So I just sped us through a pretty quick look across this interior, because what I really want to focus on for the rest of my time today is what is on the back. When Grant and I unframed this watercolor, we found a few lines of text written in pencil on the back, which was actually not mentioned in the catalog records, so this was very surprising to us. And for those of you who have been to Edgewater, you can see that we did unframe this in Mr. Jenrett's bathroom. We used the space that we have. So we see this text inscription on the back of the piece, and we were so excited to see this. As you can see, the mat kind of covered up some of the text, which was a little stressful to us at first, but we soon realized that the text was clearly photocopied either at Donald Held or by Mr. Jenrett, because we eventually found this photocopy kind of folded up and hidden inside of the frame. Obviously very exciting. The problem here, of course, is that I do not read Danish. I do not read Danish to the extent that I wasn't even totally sure that what I was looking at was Danish. I just assumed. So I spent the better part of a week really attempting to translate and transcribe the text on the back of this watercolor. Outside of a few words of Google Translate was mostly unhelpful, by the way. And I actually reached the point of desperation so severe that I started getting on Instagram and Twitter and just posting, does anybody read Danish? Can you email me if you read Danish? The world really opened up for me, so to speak, when I made out the back half of the top sentence, C. Kunson's home in the West Indies. So as good historians do, I started Googling all kinds of weird combinations of words. C. Kunson, St. Croix, C. Kunson, Christiansted, Kunson, Caribbean, Kunson, chief judge in Christiansted, St. Croix, for several decades in the 19th century. I found this C. Kunson actually in the publicly available dissertation of a historian in Copenhagen and was able to confirm with him that my C. Kunson is his Carl Frederick Kunson, so we were both very excited about that. That Danish historian was able to translate the remainder of the inscription for me, which reads in full, from mother's uncle C. Kunson's home in the West Indies on top, and Horn, which is likely a name, in Horsens, the city, sent this together with a painting of great-grandmother Dahlin after mother's death on the bottom. So with this knowledge, I was absolutely thrilled to locate Carl Kunson in 1841, 55, and 60 censuses. The 1841 and 55 censuses are on the screen just so you can get a sense of what those look like. Not only narrowing the location of this watercolor definitively to Christiansted in St. Croix, but also perhaps to its specific address. Kunson arrived in St. Croix in 1840 at 40 years old. Despite being married, his wife actually stays in Copenhagen. She keeps appearing in those censuses, but doesn't seem to ever come to St. Croix with him. Kunson's household in 1841, which we know from the census records, is on Queen Street, which is marked here with a little star. And his household in 1841 included just one other person, a cook named Charlotte Williams, who was 50 years old and born in Christiansted. I want to take a brief minute just to pause and explain that the Danish West Indies census records list these households and their members as servants and not necessarily as enslaved people. We know that this is the 19th century Caribbean, and these are likely enslaved people, but I'm going to be saying possibly enslaved and presumably enslaved because I really don't know for sure. By the 1855 census, Kunsen moves from Queen Street to Strand Street, right here, and his household grew much larger, including servants, again, who I assume are enslaved, Mary Kernand, who's 40 years old, married couple, Felix and Maria Doherty, both of Christiansted, and their children, Emily, Nedford, Ferdinand, and Frederica. Again, by 1860, Kunsen's still living at the Strand Street house. His household has grown again. Mary Kernand, Maria Doherty, who, along with Charlotte Williams, I think are the three most likely possibilities for identifying the woman in the watercolor, are still living in Kunsen's home. Maria's other children, Nedford, Ferdinand, and Frederica, and now 3-year-old Alice are still living in this house. 12-year-old Augusta Custodian has joined the household as a servant, as did another married couple, George and Nanny Henry, and their 3 children. So to return really briefly to this Henry Morton sketch, one of the reasons why this is so amazing is because it actually depicts number 22 Strand Street, and Kunsen lived at number 26 and 27 Strand Street, which the 26 and 27 implying to me that he likely lived on, his house was maybe on 2 lots. But I think it's just amazing and beyond what I ever would have expected to have a roughly contemporaneous depiction of his street, right? His street within a couple of houses of where he lived even. Kunsen was likely paid handsomely. He was a colonial official for his entire lifetime. He dies in St. Croix in 1872. And his status is evidenced by both his growing household staff between his arrival on the island in 1841 and his beautifully furnished and decorated home captured in the Jenrette Foundation's watercolor. While I haven't yet found an artist, I would like to end on one of very few remotely comparable colonial St. Croix interiors that I've located as of now, painted by Danish colonial painter Henrik Godfred Bienfeldt, who some of you may know. Bienfeldt painted scenes of urban life, both in Copenhagen and in Christiansted. And though painted in the 18th century, and this actually is in color, there just isn't a great color image of it online. This is at the National Museum of Denmark. And while painted in the 18th century, Bienfeldt's dinner party, which is in the National Museum's collection, depicts another well-furnished, presumably elite St. Croix interior. 8 white figures are identified by Bienfeldt as colonial officials, and they dine while being served by an enslaved man shown fanning the table on the right, and a possibly mixed-race woman who stands at the image's far left holding a dish. These 2 images are quite rare in their own right and separated by at least 4 decades. But these 2 Christiansted interiors, I think, really remind us of the human cost at the foundation of many of these objects and spaces and buildings we are very lucky to steward and study today. And while I wish I could tie kind of a nicer, neater bow on this right now and tell you which house is depicted, Queen or Strand Street, the year, the artist, the identity of the woman sitting in the hall, I hope you will, like me, be satiated for now with the knowledge that I am getting closer, and that especially in the case of the sitter, reuniting her likeness with her name is a responsibility that I take very seriously, and I'm very grateful for the Jenrette Foundation and the Decorative Arts Trust for letting me have the time and space to do this work. So thank you very much. Stay warm.